Nice of you to drop in.
Hello people, I'm NeuroComicBookGamer, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on how to make Deathstroke cool again. Now, I had this video planned about a week ago that I was thinking about making a video about this after the last issue of Godkiller came out, but then someone asked me on my Q&A video, well, not my Q&A video, but my video where I asked you guys to ask me questions for my Q&A, they said, how do you think DC can make Deathstroke cool again? That was asked by Magalinda Clavian. I don't know if I pronounced your name right, I probably didn't, but anyways, congratulations, you got a full video about your question, because I had this planned after the last issue of Godkiller, and then you asked that, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make a video about this now. So yeah, Deathstroke in the New 52 has been really rough, and that's putting it lightly. In the beginning of the New 52, you had Kyle Higgins writing Deathstroke. He did an okay job. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't spectacular either. It was all right. Then you had Rob Liefeld take over. Rob Liefeld is terrible all around. His art's terrible. His writing's terrible. He's not good. And he had a cool concept though, which was Deathstroke versus Lobo, but he screwed it up majorly. And then after that, you had Justin Jordan. Justin Jordan was taking over a dying book. There was nothing he could really do with it. So then the book died. Then we got a new Deathstroke book coming from Tony Daniel doing the writing and the art. Tony Daniel is one of my favorite artists currently. He's great and he did a great job with the art. The first issue, amazing. He did a really good job. And then after that, everything just kind of fell off. We had some alright issues and then some terrible issues. The first story arc for Deathstroke done by Tony Daniel, it was good. It wasn't amazing or anything. It was not terrible. I would say it was good, but like that's how I'd explain it. It's good. It's not like anything spectacular. The second story arc, Godkiller, was pretty bad. It just ended, and so with all this stuff that Deathstroke's gone through, it's like, how do you make him cool again? Because currently in the comics, he's terrible. Now in media, they'll never make him cool because that's just the way they are. They're gonna keep throwing him into Batman storylines, and they won't make him better than Batman because they're stubborn about that. So that's the way it is. He's stuck in the media until someone comes out and is like, okay, maybe we should have him beat Batman, or like, okay, let's not have him go against Batman. That once that happens, maybe we'll get a cool Deathstroke. Like for instance, Young Justice Deathstroke was alright. Like he's the best representation we've had of Deathstroke because he wasn't fighting Batman. And in live action, they just changed Deathstroke completely, which is alright because they changed Green Arrow completely as well for live action. So I didn't expect them to keep Deathstroke like true to the comics. They didn't even keep the main character true to the comics. So yeah, but anyways, how to make Deathstroke cool again in the comics. So first and foremost, get rid of Deathstroke's family. I mean, still have them exist, but don't bring them into the book. We've had so much of the Wilsons, and almost like every single writer tries to bring in Deathstroke's family. I don't know why. Like they are a huge part of his story, but they almost always bring in the Wilsons, like every single time. And it's oversaturated now. I'm sick of it. I don't need to learn more about Grant Wilson or Joseph Wilson or Rose Wilson or Adeline Kane. We don't need any more of that. I'm paying to read this book so I can read about Deathstroke. I don't need any more of his family. We've had a ton of it. I'm sick of it. We don't need any more of his family. Another thing I think they need to do is step away from the big storylines. For instance, 3 years ago, if I was to tell you, hey, Deathstroke's going to get this series to where in the first story arc, he's going to be going against this new guy called Odysseus. This guy takes over the League of Assassins. He has Bronze Tiger and Lady Shiva as his two main assassins. Deathstroke fights Bronze Tiger and Batman and Odysseus in that storyline. And then the next story arc is it's called Godkiller. He gets a contract out of God. He goes and he fights Superman and Wonder Woman along the way. They're on the Amazon island of Themyscira, and then he kills a god. You would probably be like, oh, that sounds awesome. Guess what? It's significantly less awesome than it sounds. It's just, man, those concepts sound great on paper, but the execution of them was terrible. At least the first story arc, the execution wasn't terrible, but it was not near as good as it should have been, because that idea for the first story arc sounded great. Is God of War, that's the name of the story arc. God of War, it sounded great, but it turned out to not be great. and then the second story arc was just really bad overall. So what they need to do is go sort of Marvel Now Punisher, which is what they did was they took Punisher and they just went more militaristic with it. They got in touch with the military side of Punisher. They had him go against this like cartel and stuff at first, and I was like, okay, that's cool, which is what Deathstroke did in the 90s with Full Cycle, which was his first story arc and his solo series. Go back to that. That is all original characters set in the Middle Eastern country of Korak, which is DC's, fake Middle Eastern country. So that way they can do stuff over in the Middle East without like having to worry about politics or anything. And that story arc was great, and it didn't feature any big names. He wasn't fighting Batman or anything like that. He was just fighting this guy who was pretending to be Ravager. I thought that's great. Like, it was a purely Deathstroke storyline. They brought Grant Wilson into it a bit by having the guy pretend to be Ravager, but besides that, like, none of his family actually showed up in the book, as big players or anything. So I thought that was really cool, and that storyline is great. I think they need to go back to that. Do some storyline into that. I think it'll be a breath of fresh air from all these huge storylines of Deathstroke doing all this stuff, and we don't care. Another thing is, get rid of Dead Bastards. I don't care about Dead Bastards. Dead Bastards is this, in case you don't know, that just sounds weird about what I'm saying, but Dead Bastards is the group that Deathstroke belongs to right now in New 52. They're the ones that assign him missions and stuff like that. I don't like that. And in the 90s, what Deathstroke did was he had partners that he would like pay or something to get him jobs and things. Like, he had this one lady that would help him book jobs and like get him intel and stuff. He had Squirrel, who was this guy that would make him weapons, and I thought that was really cool. He had like Grandma, I don't remember her name, Granny something, but anyways, he had a lot of different contacts that would help him get jobs and weapons and intel and stuff like that. I thought that was cool. He was not working for them, they were working for him. I like that. That was Deathstroke being a mercenary doing his own thing. But now he just sits under the roof of Dead Bastards and he does whatever they tell him. I don't like that. I think it's stupid. Get back to how Deathstroke was in the 90s. And I really do believe that is the key to making Deathstroke cool again, is getting a writer who understands the 90s series, what made Deathstroke so cool. Of course, that's up until Deathstroke the Hunted, which was a storyline in the 90s that was terrible and made sort of like everything go downhill for Deathstroke. But yeah, like, Deathstroke just needs to get rid of his family, go a bit more simple with it. Like, Full Cycle is a great storyline that has him doing things that are like not typical, just, hey, I'm gonna go fight a big name, and also make it more natural when a big guy shows up. Like when Batman showed up in City of Assassins, it felt natural because Deathstroke was in Gotham, he was causing a huge ruckus, it made sense. But when, like, Superman just shows up on Themyscira, it was kind of weird, because, like, yeah, Wonder Woman's his girlfriend, but she's also Wonder Woman, and Superman just shows up, and it was kind of weird. And then the way Harley Quinn shows up in the first story arc, I didn't like how that happened either. Like, it felt like they just did that to sell books. And in the original series, it made sense when someone would just show up in one of Deathstroke's book. It felt natural and not like they're just trying to force it to sell more books. As far as who should write the book, I have sort of a three-way tie, except one's co-writer, so technically a two-way tie. In no particular order, starting off with Judd Winnick. Judd Winnick is the only guy I want writing Deathstroke as a villain. As you guys know, I prefer him as an anti-hero, but he can make a great villain. A lot of people screw him up as a villain. Judd Winnick did not. Green Arrow, Road to Jericho, read it. Deathstroke is an amazing villain. You need to read that if you have not. Deathstroke, and that's written by Judd Winnick. He did a great job making Deathstroke an unstoppable villain, which was so cool. And I think Judd Winnick could make a great Deathstroke solo series. I don't know what comics Judd Winnick's writing right now, if he's actually even writing any. I haven't really heard a lot about Judd Winnick in like the past couple of years, so I don't know what he's currently doing. But if DC could call him up and get him to write Deathstroke, that'd be great. My number 2 pick would be Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti. These were the two guys that wrote Jonah Hex for years, and I think they could do a great job with Deathstroke as well, especially if they sort of brought the format of Jonah Hex over to Deathstroke. But what I mean by that is, in Jonah Hex, you had each issue was a separate story, like they weren't really connected, just the same character. I'd be fine with that for like the first 5 issues. That'd give us a great breather from these huge Deathstroke storylines. And these guys have proven they can do great connected stories as well, such as Jonah Hex No Way Back and Jonah Hex The 6-Gun War. They've done a bunch of great connected storylines. Also, their entire New 52 run, which was like 20-something issues, that was all connected, and it was great. I think they could do a great job with Deathstroke. You know, Jonah Hex is a bounty hunter, Deathstroke's a mercenary. They could sort of transition over. I think it would be great Also, Jimmy Palmiotti has already written Deathstroke. He wrote Flashpoint Deathstroke, which was great. I love Flashpoint Deathstroke. It's my favorite alternative version of Deathstroke. I mean, who didn't love Deathstroke as a pirate? I think that'd be awesome if those two would write Deathstroke. I think they'd do a great job. I talked to Jimmy Palmiotti once at a con and asked him to write Deathstroke, please, and he said if DC would let him, he would love to write Deathstroke. Again, that's just me talking to him at a con. They'll say anything, but still, at least he has some enthusiasm to write Deathstroke, and he said writing Flashpoint Deathstroke was one of the funnest things he's ever done because he's able to go so brutal with it. So yeah, I think that's like my thoughts on how to make Deathstroke cool again. And yeah, please let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think could make Deathstroke really awesome again? And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like.